So I think one of the most challenging things that new martial artists or Japanese martial artists run into is when they signed up for classes, they didn't realize they were also signed up for language lessons. What's worse is those language lessons are usually from people who don't really know what they're talking about because it's not their first language, or they have some idea but not a complete idea. So you run into little weird isms. And the icing on top of the cake is different schools and different styles of martial arts or karate might use different terms for the same or similar techniques. For instance, if I do this, in some schools, this is Jodan Uke, which makes sense. Jodan means upper level. This is a block or an uke at the upper level. But some schools might also call it age uke because it's rising. Some schools might call this Age-uke. Well, this is also at the Jodan level. It's also a rising block. This could also be called Naname-uke because it's coming diagonally. Then we have the middle blocks. So we have this, which in some schools would be uh, Uchi-uke. This might be Soto-uke, or in some schools that would be the other way around. Uchi means inside, so this comes from the inside. Some schools call it Uchi-uke for that reason. Some schools call it Soto-uke because it goes to the outside. Some schools call this Soto-uke because it comes from the outside. Some call it Uchi-uke because it goes to the inside. Some schools call this Ude-uke because you're using the forearms. But wait a second. Aren't I also using my forearms for these Jodan and Age and Name Ukes? How about down blocks? Get on Harai or get on Barai. But doesn't this also use my forearms? So wouldn't these also be Ude Uke? So it can be really confusing because different schools will call these things different names and mean the same thing, or call them the same thing and mean different things. Um, A cross-arm block is very typically Juji-uke. This could also be called Kosa-uke, and I'd say 9 out of 10 schools are going to call it Juji-uke, but some might call it something else. So it can be very confusing, especially when you have people whose first language is not Japanese, so which that includes me. So we mispronounce things or misunderstand things, misinterpret things, and it can be really difficult for beginners. Do you have anything like this in your school?